So, congratulations for starting this course. We're now going to cover module number 1, Introduction to MSA Validation. Throughout this course, we'll be swapping between Minitab and our PDF files. But for module 1, we need to cover some key terms and concepts that are mainly academic based. So there won't be that much use of Minitab for this module. However, modules 2, 3, and 4 will use Minitab extensively. So, a fundamental question in any statistical analysis that we must do is that we must confirm that our data that we are obtaining from our process is correct, and that our measurement equipment consistently gives us the appropriate results. In plain terms, we're saying if I grab sample A and provide it to Louis, will he give me the same output as if I grab sample A and provide it to Andres, or Carlos, or Nancy? We want to make sure that our systems consistently gives us the same output and that everyone agrees on what that output should be, whether the part is a good part or the part is a bad part. This is known as MSA, Measurement System Analysis. Throughout the MSA study, we simply quantify how repeatable and how reproducible our measurement system analysis is, while assuring that there is no inherent bias in the measurement results. So far, we are covering 3 different terms. We will refer to them by definition in a couple of minutes. Now, for MSA validation, measurement system analysis, there is no set international regulatory body or standard that must be followed. Instead, each company is tasked with creating their own regulatory requirement and their own internal procedures. It will also vary by country and area of operation. So what do we mean by this? We're going to talk about medical device manufacturing, but this also applies to aerospace or automotive. So we have FDA and ISO. FDA is the United States Food and Drug Administration. They are the regulatory body tasked with making sure that all food and drugs, as well as medical device products created for the market, are safe for consumer use. While ISO, which stands for the International Standards Organization, creates standards for companies to be able to meet usual regulations. So FDA is a regulatory agency, while ISO is a company that develops standards. If we do not meet an FDA requirement, we might face steep fines and even jail time. While failing to meet ISO requirements, in most cases, simply means not getting our certificate without any type of additional penalty. Let's say we are building a medical device product. FDA would ask us to execute MSA requirements, as in making sure that our data is repeatable and reproducible, under FDA 820.72, which states the following. This right here has been taken from the official FDA website. If we look closely, we're going to see the following. Control of inspection, measuring, and test equipment. Each manufacturer shall ensure that all inspection, measuring, and test equipment, including mechanical, automated, or electronic inspection and test equipment, is suitable for its intended purposes and is capable of producing valid results. Each manufacturer shall establish and maintain procedures to ensure that equipment is routinely calibrated, inspected, checked, and maintained. The procedure shall include provisions for handling, preservation, and storage of equipment, so that its accuracy and fitness for use are maintained. These activities shall be documented. If we look at the first section, section A right here, we can see that at no point is FDA telling us, you're going to grab 10 samples, you're going to grab 5 inspectors, you're going to do X amount of repetitions. When you change your test method or your measuring equipment, you must do X, Y, or Z. Instead, FDA tells us that everyone, each manufacturer, shall ensure that it is suitable for its intended purposes. And by doing so, they must create internal procedures that allow this to occur, but they do not tell us how. Now, to prove that a procedure meets its intended purposes, companies create their own internal procedures. It will usually be referred to as the MSA validation or MSA process, measurement system analysis. Please note that some companies will separate analysis from validation, considering validation to be the complete process of installing a measurement machine, including safety guards and creating procedures for the operation of this machine. While other companies might say, well, MSA validation is the full spec where I installed and I did the MSA study. So it depends on the wording used by the company. Again, there will be no international body telling us that the MSA stands only for this much and MSA validation stands for this much. Now, considering that FDA did not tell us how to do MSA studies or how to prove that our system is repeatable and useful for its intended purposes, let's look at what ISO stands for. ISO provides us with ISO 13485. Please remember that ISO 13485 is a standard and not a regulatory requirement. That means that if we do not meet the standard, we simply do not get certified, but there is no jail time. Okay? Now, ISO 13485 uses Section 7 to provide guidance on the proper way of implementing a measurement system. Section 7 is related to product creation or product realization, with Clause 7.6 stating control of monitoring and measuring equipment. Taken from 7.6, we get the following statement. The organization shall determine the monitoring and measurement to be undertaken and the monitoring and measuring equipment needed to provide evidence of conformity of product to determined requirements. At no point does ISO 13485 say to take 10 samples, execute 25 measurements, etc. Instead, again, companies must create their own internal procedure for MSA. As usually happens in the industry, companies will look for a best practice approach or some standard that tells them how to execute MSA. So here companies turn to AIAG MSA-4. AIAG stands for the Automotive Industry Action Group. While they're mainly focused on car manufacturing, their MSA-4 standard is used by most companies for measurement system analysis. Other standards do exist, but MSA-4 contains steps for executing gauge repeatability and reproducibility studies known commonly as gauge R&R. In the following sections, we will cover gauge R&R studies with Minitab, following some of the general recommended practices found on this standard. Please note that companies do not need to follow the MSA-4 AIG standard. Instead, they must document their own internal way of doing measurement system analysis. What auditors are mainly looking for is clarification that the company follows some type of documented procedure for MSA and has rules for determining if the MSA was successful or not. Whether the company is using MSA-4 or some other type of international standard, it is perfectly fine, so long as it is properly documented. No matter the industry, whether you're in medical, automotive, aerospace, metal manufacturing, etc., we must always demonstrate that our measurement results are accurate, repeatable, and reproducible. These terms can get very academical, but we will explain them in very basic terms for engineering purposes. An accurate result means that our measurement system will not introduce bias to the result, while a repeatable result means that the result is consistent. Lastly, reproducible means that it doesn't matter who uses it. So at this point, we're now going to stop with the PDF file and we're going to open up our Word file to do a couple of exercises to better understand these examples.